Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Between Two Dots, brought to you by Intention Media Corp. This week, we are joined by Samir Musayev. Samir's career journey began in Azerbaijan, where in 2010 he joined a local financial institution, igniting his passion for the finance industry. Like many professionals, Samir began with the basics as a bank teller, and over the next 7 years, he climbed the ranks to become the head of corporate banking and an active member of both the credit and risk management committees. In 2018, Samir earned the title of PhD in economics and made a significant move to Canada and started his journey anew for the third time. His success can be attributed to the ability to build relationships. In Canada, he went from 0 to 10,000 professional connections and understands how businesses operate in Canada. These days, Samir is mostly focused on helping Canadian businesses be successful abroad, but at the same time, he's looking to help other people who have moved to Canada and have to start their career and life from scratch. So to help build a community that promotes each other and provides with good information that could benefit a lot of people, Samir has started the Global Nomads podcast. Welcome, Samir.
Samir, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Where are you taking the call from today?
I am in my basement of my house, so this is kind of my place where I work out of. It's my little escape room when I'm working, when I'm trying to hide from my family. This is my little sanctuary, as to speak.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, that was the hope. I saw Gilbert's kids at a party not too long ago. They look like best friends. I think they probably are. But they look at them outside and they're like rolling around, and one of them ran in with like a bleeding nose. You're like, this is amazing. This is like true siblings right here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Best friends and worst enemies at the same time, right? So
Exactly.
That's so good.
yeah. Uh, so your dad was the consummate serial entrepreneur. What was your mom like then?
So my mom was the opposite. She's a professor at the university. She teaches Persian at the University of Baku State University. That's the capital of Azerbaijan. And she's been doing that for many years. And kind of my mom's family background was all in education. And that's why I was also encouraged to go into doing my PhD when I graduated my university. And yeah, but my mom has been teaching for a long time, and she enjoys that. I think, when you interact with the younger generation, that keeps you young at heart as well.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. That's cool. So Persian. So why Persian? Because you said like Azerbaijani is your like mother tongue, and then Russian was second.
Yep.
I mean, of course, like East meets West around that area as well too. Like Persian influence is probably pretty massive. But is she just like a history buff, or like where does that come from?
I think when she was growing up, she was choosing. She wanted to go into languages, and Asian languages were popular at that time, so it was something that people wanted to pursue. So people would go study Turkish, Arabic, Persian, and she chose Persian for some reason. She just liked how it is written. She's liked the melody of the way the words sound. So that's what she pursued. And plus, if you look at the maps, nearly half of the population of Iran are ethnic Azerbaijanis. So there's a cultural heritage as well to that. So although we may live in different countries and have a little bit of a different recent history, but we share a longer, more ancient history, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. And I'm just looking at your name as well too. Like I look at your name and it sounds and looks like it's a meld of cultures as well too. You know what I mean? Like it's got that like Samir, very like Arabic, like Persian kind of influence background, and then Musayev sounds very Russian as well too. So it's kind of like this like cross culture. Am I correct in that, or am I off?
That is true. Like the amount of times that people could not correlate my name to my face is shocking, especially here in Canada. When they would look at my name, they would expect someone from the Arab world to emerge, and then or maybe someone from like India or Pakistan, because it's also a very popular name there too. And then I come up and they look at my name, and they're like, are you him, or are misunderstanding something?" And even one gentleman, a bit older, probably in his 70s now, he looked at me and said, "You're too white for Samir." I'm like, okay, noted. So it was fun as well. Yeah, but I get that quite a bit. And of course, the EV ending. And the EV ending, actually, my last name historically was Musabeli. But the Bay in the last name is something similar to, let's say, the word sir that people would use in the UK. But when the Bolsheviks came into Azerbaijan, my great grandfather had to change the last name not to be prosecuted. So that's why we have the Russian ending, and we took the Bay away from the last name as well. People tried different things to survive at that period of time.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Um, so it seems like you're very worldly, and you lived a few different places. Um, so I presume that because you mentioned your dad was an entrepreneur, when you first went to Turkey, it was because of a business opportunity that brought him there.
Yeah, we went there because of my dad's business opportunities. I was a kid then. I went to a British school in Istanbul at the time. Um, I started grade 6, and then up until grade 10 is when we came back to Azerbaijan. But Istanbul was an interesting place to live in late 1990s and early 2000s, especially going from Azerbaijan. So the difference between the development of Azerbaijan and development of Turkey back then was very significant. We were just fresh out of the Soviet Union. There was a lot of nuances happening in Azerbaijan. We were at the state of war in the early 1990s, but then when we left, there was still a lot of uncertainty happening with economics, all those kind of stuff. When I was growing up, my earliest memory is actually of some Soviet tanks in the city or the capital of Azerbaijan, because in 1989 we wanted to have our independence, and then Gorbachev at the time sent troops not to make that happen. And of course, there was a lot of civilians that got hurt and all that. But I don't want to go into politics. Politics. I don't discuss politics sober. Let me put it this way. But for a country reestablishing, so I talked with my dad about this a lot, especially when COVID happened, and I was complaining, hey, we're stuck at home. It's hard. He said, yeah, but look at the situation from a different perspective. And he told me that when the Soviet Union broke up, he was my age at the time, so he was in his mid 30s. He had a kid. All his savings became zero because the banking system went null. There was a war. Then the language was reestablished. So we went back into having Azerbaijani as the main language, and we changed the alphabet. So the Azerbaijani language before the Soviet Union was established was in Latin alphabet. But then during the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union wanted to make sure that everyone is the same, it went to Cyrillic alphabet. So when we broke up, we went back into the Latin alphabet. So a lot of people became illiterate all of a sudden. So he was telling me all of these challenges, and it really helped me put things in perspective, especially during COVID, when I was like, okay, I'm just stuck at home with my family. Maybe that's actually a blessing in disguise. And I spent more time with my kids. I spent more time with my wife, and we found out that we still like each other. We still have things to talk about.
Yeah, pretty big perspective shift right there for sure as well too, especially when you have like that history right at your fingertips. That sounds wild as well too. And you're right when you hear about it, the nuances of what was going on in his life at his same age compared to what you had to go through is completely different. And then you can find that silver lining as well too. But I can't imagine that though too. Like it's pretty wild when you think about the language change and everybody or a lot of people going illiterate. That's just a crazy thing to even think about. All of a sudden, all your signage and whatever else is a different language in the place that you're born. Like that's just nuts to me. I can't even imagine that.
It's tough, and especially for the older generation. When my grandma, when she writes things, she still writes it in the Cyrillic alphabet. She doesn't think in Latin. I think in Latin when I write it, but my grandma can read it, but still makes notes differently. So it's just fun. And then when I see some of the older books, it takes me time to adjust when I'm trying to read it.
Yeah. And then what was the takeaway from your time in Turkey then?
So I guess my biggest takeaway from the time of Turkey was meeting different people, different cultures. So because it was an international school, I had friends from all over the world. I had a friend from Uruguay, I had a friend from Mexico, I had a friend from Bosnia, I had a friend from Hungary, and the friend from Hungary is one of my best friends. We still keep in touch all the time. And uh, when you're growing up from Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan itself was very diverse. Azerbaijan is where, oil and gas started as an industry. So we always had a lot of people from different backgrounds coming and making money before kind of the Soviet Union. And then during the Soviet Union, it was still a lot of different people. And even now you have Jews and Muslims and Christians all living together kind of in peace. So it's a very unique place, but it wasn't as diverse as I experienced in Turkey when I went to the school. And seeing a lot of different kids from different cultures taught me one thing, is that when I was going over to a friend's house for dinner or for lunch, or maybe they would give me different kinds of food, but the conversation, the laughs, the families, it was all the same. It was all very similar. So I think the biggest takeaway that I had it back then, and probably more subconsciously than consciously, was that people are people everywhere. We're more similar than different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't that the truth, right? And yeah, that's pretty cool that you get to see that opportunity, especially at the dinner table, where you really see it the most. You talk about having two kids now. Do you take some of that same, I guess, experience that you had and impart it on them? Like, how do you make sure that they have kind of a worldly outlook as well?
Well, first of all, I guess my own experience of being a kid immigrant helps out. So I know the challenges of the kids that they're facing. I know when my daughter here, my older one, went to school for the first day, she didn't speak a word of English. And I could really relate to that because when I went to school the first day in Turkey, I didn't speak a word of English either. And even worse, I didn't speak English and I didn't speak Turkish either. So it was very hard for me to communicate. And I could emphasize with that. So, helping her out through the journey and all those kind of things. But even today, seeing that she has friends from different backgrounds at the school, and also making sure that she has friends from Azerbaijan as well, is what is important, because the opportunities here to be very diverse, they're immense. You will see people from different cultures, different backgrounds. You will be open to the world, but I don't want her to lose the identity either. So that's why we enrolled both of them into our Azeri dancing. So there's a group of Azeri mothers, as to speak, that put together a dance group called Azeri Stars, and they dance at different performances, like the global show here in Calgary and so on. They have even been invited to a couple corporate events as well. So it's quite nice to see that they're immersed in the culture.
Yeah, I think that is important, especially, being here. It's kind of a melting pot, like you said, in terms of cultures and that sort of stuff. But then to have some sort of element from your heritage that keeps you that community tight knit is important, and inevitably they're probably interacting with. I presume it's probably mostly women that are running that program and that sort of stuff. So then they're probably passing on a lot of traditions and know-how and all the things, right? So
exactly, and at the same time, to your point, like the biggest challenge is when you're an immigrant is how do you make sure that you integrate into society. So you take the best from the country that you moved into, but also you don't lose the best from your own culture as well. So keeping the best of two worlds. So that is the biggest challenge I find. But it also means that you have to be open to integration. That's why we celebrate, for example, we're going to be celebrating Christmas. And we're not of a culture that does celebrate Christmas. Like for us, the biggest one is the New Year's. So we celebrate New Year's graduates. So now the kids, for example, they have Santa coming and bringing them gifts on Christmas Day, but then also we call him Grandfather Frost, bringing them gifts during the New Year's. So yes, it hits the pocket, to be honest, buying two sets of gifts, but you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
And then I guess you were deciding on education, and you said you went to Russia for school. Was that like the natural place to go, given like what you want to get into and proximity and that sort of stuff? Or what was the decision? What was going through your head in terms of making that decision in terms of where to go?
Well, actually, funny enough, Russia happened by accident for me. Uh, I was planning to go to Germany. I was studying German intensively, learning the language and everything after school. I remember the amount of hours I spent after school going to classes and then memorizing things, repeating things. It was intense. But it happened so that there was an opportunity to take an exam, and I took an exam and I got a scholarship to one of the best universities in Russia.
Hmm.
So I thought to myself, and when consulting my parents as well on this matter, instead of going to Germany to a university that is not as well known and paying money for it, it makes more sense to go take the scholarship, go to Russia to a well-known, well-renowned university, and take that opportunity. And it's interesting how when you're living through the moment, you don't really see how things fit in. But then now looking back retrospectively, I see how the whole puzzle came together. So, for example, my university was a university. It's a diplomatic university. I was actually supposed to be a career diplomat. And that was the goal. The foreign office was the people who are paying for the education. And my degree was in international commerce and marketing. And then when I find that, when I went back home after the university, I was going back, and they said, "Hey, but you don't have to come back if you don't want to. You can go whatever you do. Like, but to come and work for the foreign office, you have to take a test." So I thought, okay, let me see what else is out there. And I started with a bank as a teller. Back then, it is still one of the biggest banks in Azerbaijan. Slowly grew through the ranks, and then I find that having that financial acumen and financial background, that international aspect of my education, international commerce, when I look at today and what I'm doing with Expert Development Canada, it all comes in together. Because now I have that financial background, I have the diplomatic background, and that international commerce education. But also the funny thing is, when I was doing my PhD, my thesis was about how do you make sure that the banks, and this was of course on the example of Azerbaijan, so how do you make sure that the banks in Azerbaijan were less reluctant into investing into the real sector? And after a lot of research, I was talking about the creation of an organization similar to EDC back home too. So it all came together when I started working for HSBC, or for EDC here. And when you're living through it, you don't really see it. But when you look at things retrospectively, you see how everything was meant to be and how the puzzle pieces come together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, crazy how that works out. Hey, like one decision just completely like reroutes your entire life. But it looks like it worked out. So you said that you didn't want to do the diplomat route, and you kind of went into banking. Yeah, even after you get a scholarship, why didn't you want to get into that same industry that kind of gave you the free ride?
Well, when I went back to the foreign office, first of all, they said, you have to take a test. And I said to myself, what's the point of me taking a test if you've paid for my education to be a diplomat? So that kind of, was a big question for me. But then I guess the responsibility of working for the foreign office and the responsibility you have to take was something that I didn't want at the time. Being fresh at the university, there's a lot of different opportunities that you can take.
Mm-hmm.
And being there working for the government felt a little bit daunting, as to speak.
Mm.
So banking felt a bit more open to opportunities, to the things, and of course the salaries in the banking world and in the government world are a bit different as well. So I will not lie, that also was a factor in the decision making.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, when you're potentially being a diplomat, is that like describe one of those roles? Would it be working at a government office at a different country? Like, are you working in an embassy kind of thing, or are you just working in government within Azerbaijan?
So you usually start within Azerbaijan, and then you get assignments to different countries. You get an assignment, 3 to 5 year assignments, then you come back to Azerbaijan, spend another couple of years back, and then you get another assignment. So it's
Mm.
usually back and forth, which is also difficult when you look at it from a perspective of having a family, having a stable life, if you're always constantly traveling.
Yeah, fair enough. Sounds like you made a pretty calculated decision of like what you wanted to do and why.
Yeah. So you were a teller at one of the major banks in Azerbaijan, and then so where how does your story kind of take you to present day? Like what was the catalyst or opportunity to come to Canada? What did that look like, and why?
So the teller is kind of the beginning of the journey. 3 months into being the teller, they saw that I had some potential. They took me out of the teller world. And of course, when I was saying the teller, it was the old school teller behind the screen, and then counting money. And then when I washed my hands after the long day, like it was all black coming out because of the dirt of the
Mm.
money. But then slowly, I did a lot of different works within the bank. So one of the things that management really was thinking about is for us to be around bankers, and meaning seeing different parts of the bank. So I did risk underwriting, I did credit underwriting, I was in a relationship management position, and so on. And then I was with a different international FI by 2014. And in 2014, one of the biggest financial crises happened. Like the oil and gas prices went down, and it was the one that had the biggest effect on the Azerbaijani economy. So our currency, the Azerbaijani mana, devaluated nearly more than 100% overnight, literally overnight, and it affected a lot of our clients. But working with that bank at the time, I was able to keep the portfolio intact, working with the corporate clients and all that, and they promoted me to become head of commercial banking. Or it was head of commercial and corporate banking because it was all in one. So and I became a member of the risk management committee of the credit committee. So they gave a lot of opportunities for me to raise the ranks. But then my wife and I were talking and we're thinking about kind of the future, the next steps, progression, and all that. And of course, when you look at geopolitics, the region itself is a bit volatile. So we wanted to make sure that we're somewhere where there's less volatility from that perspective, but also for our own sakes as well, because we found Canada to be a land where you can learn new things, you can get new experiences, but also your experiences are valid too. So we decided to make the move. And on the note of making calculated decisions, we chose Calgary for many specific reasons. Azerbaijan's two main economic drivers are oil and gas and agriculture, and same as here in Calgary. Then Calgary was city number 3 in the world in terms of best places to live back in 2018. So that was another part of the decision. It was a city that is safe for kids and raising a family. The pricing of houses were very different in comparison to Toronto's and Vancouver and whatnot. And then I had a cousin here, which also added to that point in terms of choosing Calgary. So we did move to Calgary directly. So going through that decision-making process. And then here, the journey of working at a bank. So I applied to many different places. I applied to HSBC, and thankfully, my manager at the time hired me, and that was a great journey too, because HSBC is a globally renowned or financial organization, and working for there, learning and getting new experience is very valid. And all my experience from previous life was also proven to be quite valid as well. Because sometimes I find people say, "Hey, you need to have Canadian experience." Yes and no, because you will learn Canadian experience, but it doesn't mean that your previous experience is not valid here too. It can be very valid, especially from a perspective of providing new ways of doing things. So sometimes I feel that, we can be a bit conservative and not look at other ways of doing things, but it's good to bring that new fresh air, let's say, and change the perspective. So yeah, so from a career journey, I think it proved to be a good choice. And now working with Expert Development Canada, I'm also very happy. We're helping clients going international. Of course, this year with all the tariffs and all those conversations was a difficult year, but I think that's when the experience of going through challenging times proved to be useful.
This episode is brought to you by Bloom Benefits Group. Bloom Benefits is disrupting employee benefits by rethinking the status quo. They provide exceptional customer service while saving you money. Bloom offers group benefits and retirement products, health and wellness accounts, executive benefits, life insurance, and disability and critical illness. Available to companies across Canada, Bloom helps clients save money without interrupting current plans. Check them out at bluebenefits.ca.
Young professionals, families, and entrepreneurs. What makes Zelos Investment Counsel different? Our independence, client focus, and access. Zelos Investment Counsel is independent from banks and brokerages, which ensures clients' best interests are served without corporate conflicts. We are fiduciary portfolio managers with a duty to clients that doesn't exist in the brokerage model. At Zelos Investment Counsel, we exist to care for our clients, and every day we strive to help our clients reach their goals. We provide our clients with access to institutional investment managers and sector specialists through our proprietary investment structure. For more information, book your no obligation meeting today at zelosglobal.com. That's www.zelosglobal.com.
Attention all car owners. Is the winter weather turning your beloved ride into a rusty relic? Fear not, because we've got the solution you've been dreaming of: Crown Rust Protection. Picture this: your car defying the elements, standing strong against rust like a knight in shining armor. Crown Rust Protection is not just a shield, it's an investment in the longevity and resale value of your vehicle. Don't let rust take the wheel. Book your Crown Rust Protection treatment today and let your car embrace its inner superhero. Call now at 403-291-1951 or book your appointment at www.krown.com. Our skilled technicians are ready to give your car the VIP treatment it deserves. Crown Rust Protection, because your car deserves to age like fine wine, not rusty vinegar.
Today's episode is brought to you by Motive, a leading venture builder with over a decade of experience helping corporates and startups build, launch, and scale successful business ventures. Whether you're looking to innovate your business model, develop a game-changing product, or craft a winning go-to-market strategy, Motive is with you every step of the way. Their proven venture building process and technologies help reduce risks and accelerate time to market. Innovation is everywhere. Let's harness it together. Visit motive.digital to learn more. That's Motive spelled M-O-T-I-V.
Yeah, definitely. That's quite the journey for sure. And it's nice that you have that opportunity to now kind of give back to your clients here, especially navigate tough times. You've also started, before we got into our podcast, you said that you started your own podcast, right? So tell us about that, because it sounds like you're helping people in all facets, but very, very cool to hear that not only professionally you're doing that, but tell us about the journey with the pod as well.
So that's also interesting how it happened. Just people started reaching out to me, asking for coffees and introductions. And because I try to be active in the market, I try to be active out there. So I had one coffee, second coffee, then I helped one person get a job, I helped a second person get a job. And then, of course, more and more people start reaching out to me because of the word of mouth. And but there's only so much time in the world that you could give to people. And I thought, okay, if I cannot spend an hour with each person having coffee, maybe a podcast or something along those lines would make more sense to be able to share the same information with more people. So that was one thing. The second thing also, that there's a lot of negativity about immigrants these days on the news. Immigrants did this bad, immigrants did that bad. And of course, when you look at it, there are going to be bad apples. There are always going to be bad apples in different communities. But I find that maybe only 5% of the total amount of immigrants could be bad, maybe even less. But the rest who came here, who made a life here, who are contributing to society here, those stories are not as shared in comparison to the negative stories. So I wanted to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to share the positive stories. We're going to be bringing light to people who are facing similar challenges that other immigrants face, but they're just starting their journey. But at the same time, I found that a lot of the information that we're sharing on the podcast is not relevant just to immigrants. It's relevant to everyone. So, for example, a lady was on the podcast and we're talking about finding a job. If you're looking for a job, all the same things are applicable, even if you're not an immigrant. So at the end of the day, we're hoping to bring more light to everyone. And let this be a little bit of a commercial for those who don't know. The name of the podcast is the Global Nomads Podcast. So do check it out. But yeah, that's kind of how it happened. And I think that's my way of getting back to the community or giving back to the community.
Yeah, that's great. Congratulations. I've seen some clips of it and stuff, so that's good. It looks like it's something that came together and something that made sense in terms of, having firsthand knowledge and as well just having the passion and also connecting with the right type of guests that can tell kind of their story along that same thread, right? So
yeah, and at the end of the day, I think that's what we're all trying to do, is to leave the world better than we found it, and but it takes one person at a time.
yeah. And it's awesome too, because like a lot of people can talk about doing something, but to have an idea and actually like execute on it is a different thing, right? So
I find there's two important things, and this is what Hafiz and I also chatted pre-recording, is execution and consistency. There's a lot of great ideas out there. There's a lot of people with passion out there, but I've seen a lot of people start something and then lose passion for that. If you lose passion for something, it means two things. Either you weren't that passionate to begin with, or you have a short attention span. So you're now passionate about something else. But if you want to be successful, and that's successful with all aspects of life, be that raising kids, be that family life, be that dating life, work, and all that, it's all consistency. If you're consistently giving the same messages to the kids, they will hear that message. If you're consistently working hard in your industry, you will become an expert in your industry. If you're consistently practicing guitar, you will become an expert player in guitar, right? So consistency uh, is key in the world. But of course, you also have to have a little bit of a balance. You cannot just focus on things. You have to remember that you work hard, but you have to relax and do some fun stuff for yourself as well.
yeah,
for sure. I think that's a good segue as well too. It's like my question for you was like, so what are some of the lessons with all of your travels and things that you've worked on that you would pass on to either your kids or other people that are listening? But you said consistency, and then now the other side of it, which was the take time to chill out and relax as well too. So what would you say if I asked you, what are some lessons that you would pass on?
So, of course, consistency and take time for yourself and having a balanced life is important. But the most important thing is take care of your health and take care of it early. I find that when you're young, you forget how important health is. But I've seen people lose health and be very different kinds of people, like become very different. My grandma would be a great example of that. She was an eye surgeon, and she was an eye surgeon before the lasers and all those kind of things. So she would tell me the story of how she would, use a scalpel, open up the eye, change the crystal, and then, sew the eye back. The stability of her hands. Can you imagine how stable her hands were to be able to do that?
Mm.
And we lost her from dementia when she retired. So taking care of yourself, taking care of your body, of your head. I personally believe I will never retire, because a brain is just like any other muscle. It needs to be, you always need to exercise it. Maybe I will not continue doing the same type of work I'm doing right now, do something different, but you always have to make sure that your brain is active, your body is active. And at the same time, I find after a stressful day, I go to the gym and get out. I'm so relaxed. Like all that negativity of the day has vanished. I don't know. Health is very important and sometimes very under thought of.
Yeah, agreed. All good things for sure. Your brain power is massive, and that's pretty wild as well too about your grandma as a surgeon. I saw Gilbert's face grimacing when he talked about the.
I was just thinking of like a scalpel to the eye, right? Like it's like but like inevitably, like that's what was required and what was done, right? So
Well, my great grandmother was a dentist, and I will not tell her stories of taking teeth out back in the day
Oh my
when
God.
anesthesia was not a thing.
Jeez. Yeah. Come from some strong genes, my friend. Lots of things going on there. But all good lessons as well too. And so you said you hit the gym and you're working. What do you do to relax? Like, we talked about the holidays coming up here pretty soon, and what are you gonna do to just take it easy and recharge? What's something that you enjoy doing?
Well, of course, I'm enjoying time spending with my kids. I like watching 90s movies with them now. Now they're older and understand some of the movies. We recently watched Man in Black and enjoyed that quite a bit. So, in some of those movies, they still are very well received, even from my kids' generation. That's something I enjoy. But also, I enjoy reading books. I find that, there's a lot of good written educational books, how to be more, um, like, what's the right word for it? Efficient, how to be a better negotiator and all those kind of things. But I like to read books that are fiction books. I like them because I feel like the smart books, let's call them, they are the feed for the brain, but the other ones they feed the soul. So I like that. And sometimes the philosophy raised in some of those books are so beyond times when they were raised. So I enjoy that. I recently read the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and that's a story of Nautilus and how it was, traveling under the oceans and all that. And when it was written, it was science fiction. And when I read it now, of course, all of the big countries they have their own submarines. But now, when I read something from a future where people are traveling space, it puts me into perspective that hey, you know, maybe that's the way I'm reading Nautilus right now will be the way people in 100 years will be reading the books about space travel because now everyone is doing space travel. So I like that, and I like kind of to think about the future and what it's going to be like. I I had a time when I would read a lot of dystopian future books like 1984
Mhm.
or The Brave New World or Atlas Shrugged, but uh, I'm a bit more optimistic about the future these days. I still don't believe in a utopia, but I believe that we can make the world a good place for the kids to the Big Bang.
Those are all really good tips. Like, I've been in those situations before, and Gil's really good for this. Like, I'll go to an event and I won't know anyone, and I'll kind of be the quiet guy at the corner. But I'll go to an event, I'll see Gilbert, and he'll be chatting up randoms, and he'll meet people, and he's in there. So your first tip, when you said walking up to two people that are in conversation and saying something like, "Hey, sorry to interrupt, but can I barge in? You look like interesting people." That's like gold for someone like me to use that line. I'm going to steal that line for sure,
Please.
and get right in there. Because if I know people, I'm all about it. I'm having the best time, and if I don't, I'm all of a sudden like super super shy. I get into my own head and freak myself out a little bit, right? Until I find that one person that I know. And to your second point, don't just stick on that person. That's me. Like, I found you, like I'm gonna just cling on you for a little while. But all good tips.
But you can actually leverage that person as well. You can say, hey, have you been to these events before? Do you know anyone that I should meet? That person might know another one person at least. So at least now you have an easy way, a warm introduction to someone in the room. And then ask that person for another introduction and so on. And it can lead. If you don't want to approach people, you can at least start by the people who you already know and kind of use them as leverage.
I like it. Great tips.
Yeah, it's all great tips because I certainly resonate with your experience as well in terms of the whole networking aspect. It didn't come naturally to me as well, but it's just kind of getting the reps right. And similar to yourself, I feel like it's I believe like the definition of introvert extrovert is actually where you get energy, right? So similar to yourself, I feel like I'm kind of more actually introverted, but the fact is being in the community and adding value, business development, that's all required and our respective roles, right? So as a result, it's kind of a deemed necessity. And the key message here, it's like it's learnable. It's a skill that you could kind of work on, and there's like these tips and tricks that you can kind of utilize, right?
Exactly. The tips are out there. Their coaches can teach you that, but at the end of the day, you must be open to putting yourself in those situations. You must sign up to these events. You must go to these events. You must be there. Because if you don't do the legwork, honestly, results will not happen. It's just sometimes interesting how the world works, right? A little bit of effort can lead to a lot of good opportunities for the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I will also add a note that you never know who the next person is going to be end up and where. So by what I mean by that is sometimes people don't want to follow up with a person because, okay, that person works for a bank right now and I don't need a new banker. But you don't know where that person will end up in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years. One of my best stories and one of my best referrals back home came from a masseuse who said, hey, I had a client earlier. He was tense and I asked him, like, what's happening? Why are you so tense? And he's now having some financial distress with my current bank. And she's like, oh, I'm going to have a banker come in later. Maybe I can make an introduction. So she made an introduction to me and he was one of my best clients. You never know where that next referral is going to be and where people will end up and which people know who, right? Like I have an uncle, I have an aunt, I have a brother, I have a sister. Maybe they know someone, right? And that can grow.
Yeah, all good things. You got to throw yourself out there every opportunity you get. Because yeah, like you said, you never know where that's going to go. And this is probably a good opportunity for the people that are listening as well too to learn more about you then and how to get a hold of you. What is your role at the industry organization that you're at? What is your ask for the people that are listening? And if you had like an elevator pitch for the services that you provide, what would that be?
Well, I'm going to keep it short and say if you are working for a company that is thinking about diversifying your markets, because maybe you are only focused on the US right now, or maybe you're selling somewhere international, maybe you're not selling international at all. Maybe you are selling to an exporter, but you want to diversify and you don't know where to start from. You don't know how to approach a new country, how to make sure that you are successful in your international venture. Reach out to me on my LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is like my best friend these days. I'm very active on it. I try to reply as quickly as I can to the information that is coming through there. And I'm always happy to make new connections. So reach out, have a chat, and let's see where it goes.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks, Samir. I think this is an awesome conversation. As I mentioned earlier, when I've never met somebody and they'll come to a conversation or a connection through Gilbert, it's fun to really connect those dots. No pun intended. But it is pretty fun because like I don't know how we would have met unless we were at certain events. I probably would have been the shy guy in the corner. Maybe you would have come to introduce yourself to me. But this is really nice to get a really good hold of who you are as a person and your journey and the value that you're adding to the community. So it was a pleasure getting to know you and learning more about some of the stuff that you offer. I'm sure we'll definitely see you around more at some of these events. And best of luck on the podcast. But that was a fun conversation. I certainly got a lot of tips out of that. So thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you both for inviting me. I really appreciate this conversation as well. It's fun and it's always nice to share some of the experience that might be valid to someone listening to it. Because one thing I found in life is sometimes you say something to a person and you don't realize how impactful that can be in that person's life. Just recently, I had a conversation where a person came and said, "Hey, I was laying in bed for a week and crying myself to sleep because of the challenges of immigration." And then from a conversation, that person say, "Okay, this actually inspired me." So hopefully, some people listening to this will be inspired, and that's all I can ask for. But again, thank you both for inviting me and having me share the story today.
Yeah, thank you so much. We get those messages from time to time in terms of like people messaging myself or Hafiz and they're like, oh, we heard the episode with so-and-so and I really needed to hear that right now. So I'm sure that there's someone out there that needs to hear this message. So really appreciate your time.
Thank you both. Have a great Christmas and New Year's and all the holidays in between and after.
Yeah, you as well. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Between Two Dots by Intention Media. This podcast is co-hosted by myself, Gilbert Bong, and Hafiz Mita. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate and review wherever you listen.